This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Education Business Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the differences between solopreneurship and business ownership. And I know that even the title is maybe a little bit triggering, because we all want to believe that we're business owners, and obviously we are. But I strongly believe there is a difference between being a solopreneur and owning a business. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about what some of those differences are, because perhaps you are a solopreneur and you want to be a business owner, but you don't know what the difference is. And that will help you decide whether you're happy as a solopreneur or whether you want to move into business ownership. Now, I'm not saying if you're a solopreneur, you don't own a business, because technically you do. But we're talking about building this thing of value, this thing that is not you doing a job. And we're going to get into the details of that. I just thought now was a really good time to remind you that I say a lot that 90% of the learning in business comes after your first employee or your first hire. So what are the differences? Is it possible to be on your own in your company and be a business owner or not? I believe no. If you're on your own in your business, it's a job. You might be working towards becoming a business owner, but if you're the only person who is running everything, then you're a solopreneur. There's nothing wrong with that. We all start there. But you have the choice to decide whether you want to stay as a solopreneur or whether you grow your business so that it's not a job for you anymore. Anyway, let's get into the 6 differences. There are more differences than just these 6, but I just wanted to pull some out. I ended up with 4 to begin with. And I thought, I always end up doing 4. Every podcast episode starts with the number 4. So let's shake it up a bit. Ended up with 5. Then as I started recording, I remembered another really important one. So you've got 6 today. But anyway, the first one is about passing it on or holding on to it. So solopreneurs will hold on to things in their business. Generally a process or a certain way of doing things, or even the actual work itself. A business owner is going to pass that on to somebody. And that can be really difficult. It might be a freelancer. You might end up getting an employee. You might pass a process on. And you can get stung by this as well. I've been stung by this. Clients that I work with have been stung by this. It's a normal thing. The key is when you pass things on to someone else to look after, how you manage that process and what you learn from that process to be able to keep doing it. You can make a choice and you can decide I'm not going to pass anything on again, or you can learn from it and do it a different way. I am somebody who is really good at passing things on now. When I think of a new idea or a new process, I'm already thinking about the steps to pass that thing on. It's like I'm programmed that way. But it wasn't always like that. In the beginning, I did things and I didn't feel like I could articulate what that process actually was. I didn't feel like I'd be able to get every single nuance out onto a piece of paper, and that stressed me out. What I didn't realise is that it wasn't my job to get every single thing out of my head. It was to get 80% of it out into my head and be able to morph it and change it as I went forward. But the hardest part was not actually passing something on. It was figuring out how to pass it on and make it work in a way that I could still understand everything that was going on, that I could make sure things were still happening in the way that I needed them to happen, that I didn't end up doing all of the work afterwards after somebody else had done it, otherwise what's the point in passing it on? All of these little challenges were part of the process. So the difficult thing was not letting go of it. It was figuring out how to pass it on well, how to make that process work. So that's a key difference between solopreneurship and business ownership. Not only being able to let go of things, but figuring out how to let go of things, over and over again. Second key difference is business owners are building value to transfer at some point. Solopreneurs are going through the motions, likely to wind up their work at some point. You've probably gathered that I absolutely love talking business. So there are 3 people in my life right now who are solopreneurs, and they're over the age of 60. 1 female, 2 males. They're all going to wind their business up. They've got to the point where they're fixated on the fact that they want to retire at some point, and they're either not taking on any new clients or letting it fizzle down, or they're just going to wind the business up because they don't have a buyer, but perhaps they haven't built something that's worthy of buying. So I want to ask you the question, what are you going to do when it comes to your retirement? Can your business fund your retirement? Is the plan to just wind it up? Are you hoping somebody will buy it? Do you know what that entails for somebody to buy your business? And if in your mind, when I asked that question, you said that you're going to wind it up, do you feel satisfied with the amount of value you have received from your business so far? Do you feel like for every minute, hour, sleepless night you've put in, that your business has paid you back? Was the salary that you took every month worth it? Or do you feel like you've invested time to get a payback out later on that shows itself as money? Because that's generally what we do, isn't it? I've certainly done that, Class from Secrets. I've kept money into the company as an investment, just like I would do in stocks and shares. I've also invested a lot of time and energy into it. And I'm expecting at some point in the future, that will be like having shares in another company where I see a return on the investment that I have put in. So what are your thoughts? Perhaps you have started your company as a solopreneur, and it's at this point right now listening to this podcast episode where you realise, I've built this company actually, and it is a job to me, and I have a choice now. I can either carry on as I am, or I can think about how I build value in the company that can then be transferred to somebody in exchange for money later on down the line. The third difference between owning a business or solopreneurship is that when you are owning a business, you have in your mind that one day you will not work in it. Whereas when you're a solopreneur, you've got no plans to exit the business in any way. You have basically created your own job that you will stay with. You are not planning on doing any new roles in your business until one day you wind it up, or I suppose potentially sell it, depending on what kind of business it is and whether that's possible or not. The fourth difference is one that I see so much. So the solopreneur is really focused on day-to-day sales. They're thinking about the next sale all the time, which there's nothing wrong with that. If you need that, you need that. We all have to start there. Whereas the business owner is thinking more about the long-term strategy. So if you're in a place where you're worrying about the next sale, at that point, you're still in solopreneurship. And I guess the goal, whether solopreneur or business owner, is to get yourself to a place where you're not having to worry about the next sale. You do have good systems and processes in place that you know work, particularly with sales, so that sales are coming in as part of that process. A business owner is thinking about the long-term strategy. What are we doing in the next 3 years? What are we doing in the next 5 years? How are we growing this business? How are we moving forward in the marketplace? What challenges do we foresee? And how are we going to tackle those challenges? The solopreneur's role tends to be quite reactive based on what's happening then and there in the market. And we do have to start there, absolutely. The fifth difference is that the business owner generally has this desire to grow exponentially, even if it means more work in the interim. This can be really tricky. And I suppose I started Education Business Club not wanting to put the extra work in. And part of that was because at the time I was CEO at Classroom Secrets and I knew I only had so much bandwidth. But with entrepreneurship and business ownership, everything works in seasons, and sometimes you've just got to knuckle down and get on with it. So last year, Ed and I took the kids on 7 holidays, and it was something that I really wanted to do. We'd been working towards it, and it was a lovely thing. This year, I haven't been on one yet. And there's a reason for that, because we are doing some big things that just require us to really just knuckle down and crack on with it. And so we are definitely working more this year, but it's not that we're setting ourselves up to do that long term. We are doing that for a period of time to get things moving. So do you remember point 1 when I said passing it on and figuring a way to make it work? Well, that's what we're doing. We're using everything that we've learned. We're putting the effort in to set some things up so that in the long term, we won't have to work as much. It will pay us back. So business owners understand that they desire to grow exponentially, and they know that that means periods of really just having to knuckle down and really get into the detail, and then periods of time where they can step back and have a bit of a relax and let things work. A solopreneur doesn't desire things to grow exponentially. They'll say things like, well, the market's saturated, I don't need any more clients, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, etc. Again, absolutely no problem if that's where you want to be. And the 6th one is challenges. So it might feel as a solopreneur that you come up against challenges every day, but the real challenges happen when you step into business ownership. The larger you grow your business in terms of revenue, profit, members of staff, the bigger challenges you will receive in return. As a thank you for solving the smaller challenges, you'll get bigger challenges, which might seem like an awful thing, but it really helps you grow as a person, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? In business ownership, the challenges are bigger than they are in solopreneurship. Now, I want to reiterate that there's no right or wrong here. There's no, oh, it's good to be a business owner and it's wrong to be a solopreneur. That's not the case. What it might mean is that you started as a solopreneur, you've just taken the next steps one after another, like I did at Classroom Secrets, and then you get to a point when you realise, hang on, this needs to be a business where I'm the owner now, not solopreneurship. And we can get to this point where we realise we have to start making the shift, that things aren't going to change unless we change, unless we dig deep and do some things differently. We go out there, we get more clients because we know how. We get to the point where we're fully booked so we can take on another member of staff, even if things feel difficult in the interim. So what dreams do you have for yourself and your business? Where will you be in 3 years? Will you be a solopreneur? Will you be a business owner? What will your business look like if you take on the role of business owner? I'm sure I've left you with a lot of questions to think about. Maybe it's challenged the way you thought things were. Maybe you thought you were working in the business owner space, but perhaps you're working more in the solopreneurship and you want to make some changes. But I want to leave you with this. To be a business owner, we've got to stop thinking like a solopreneur, because that can stop us getting the bigger contracts, stop us getting more clients, because we're worried about how we're going to fulfill that when we want to maintain this life-work balance. A business owner doesn't really worry about that because they're thinking about the business fulfilling that, not necessarily them. Yes, it might mean some difficult things in the interim, but when you commit to being a business owner, you're willing to go through the short-term pain for the long-term gain in some of these areas. If you feel like you've had a bit of an epiphany moment and you just want to chat through how you move your business from being focused on solopreneurship to business ownership, why don't we have a chat? I'm currently doing a number of ad hoc mentoring sessions with people just to help them think about where the business is going. Sometimes you don't have the financial means or the time to commit to recurring mentoring, but you just want to get clear on what your next steps are to be able to go in the direction that you want your business to take, so that in the long term, you can get all of the things that you've been wanting. If you think that's something that I can help with, you'll find the link in the show notes. So I'm either going to speak to you in the next few weeks, or I'll see you on the next episode. This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow, and scale your education business.